All over the world, sharks are being caught in order to send these fins to these countries.
So the obvious thing to think is we should stop consuming seafood, right? But your approach is very different.
So it seems ridiculous to me to say then don't eat seafood, because what else are they going to eat? Because people are eating so little, but people are catching so much. A lot of it was getting wasted. It was only maybe 4 years after that the first papers started coming out saying that there are these dead zones in the ocean because of climate change.
What steps can we take as consumers of seafood to be more conscious about what we are consuming and how we are consuming it?
Make sure that you are eating diverse, because that is good not only for your health but also for the ocean's health.
Clickbaity.
My problem is
This is the Boring Climate Podcast, a platform where we encourage serious climate conversations. Joining us today is Dr. Divya Karnad, an international award-winning marine conservationist and scientist and associate professor at Ashoka University. Her work sits at the intersection of science, policy, and community, focusing on sustainable fisheries, marine conservation, and the people whose lives depend on the sea. Topics that merit deeper understanding in our warming planet. She is also the founder of InSeason Fish, a sustainable seafood initiative that connects small fishers to conscious markets. With a Ph.D. from Rutgers and Masters in Ecology and Conservation, Dr. Karnad brings a truly interdisciplinary approach to ocean conservation, one that values local knowledge as much as scientific evidence. Welcome to the show, Divya. So what made you interested in the marine conservation and sustainability space, and how has that evolved into your current research practice?
I think because I grew up in a coastal city and along the coast, I was always interested in wildlife, but I think my access to wildlife was not really there, except if I looked in the sea or on the beach and so on. And so then I realized that there were these sea turtles coming to the beach to nest, even in the city. And that kind of started my interest. But as I started working on the beach with sea turtles and so on, I eventually realized that it was not just the wildlife per se, but it was also the fishing communities there who were really interesting, and the fish, because I eat fish. So it was interesting to see that whole process of how they go from the sea into the nets to the markets and so on. So that's kind of what led to my interest in fisheries and so on.
Right. And if you could, before we kind of get into what you do further, what is the methodology you follow to study and research what you research?
So I started out with training as an ecologist, so kind of, mainstream science and so on. But as I started doing this work, I realized that it was a bit inadequate, that training. A lot of my work involved working with people. And I felt like that ecology kind of lens was not good enough. And so then I became more of an interdisciplinary scientist. I got more of social science training and so on. And so now my work is mainly interdisciplinary, looking both at the people and at the ecosystem.
Right. So we'll get into how the climate affects marine life. And broadly, most of us know a warming planet is not good for marine species. But specifically, how has climate variability affected India's coasts, and also the fisher community that depend on our seas?
Yeah, so in terms of climate impacts, I think the most visible one to everybody would be the extreme weather events, the storms and so on. I think it's become obvious to everyone that this is happening much more frequently. It is no longer an occasional thing or something that happens only in Orissa or West Bengal, which was always prone to cyclones and stuff. But now, strangely, it's even happening on the West Coast, and we are getting really off-season storms and so on. So that's something that's affecting everybody, including the fishers, because obviously during storms, it's a very life-threatening thing. They can't go to sea. But strangely, after storms, they get a lot more fish catch. So it's both a good and a bad thing. But in addition to that, I think the warming seas is another big problem that we haven't really thought about. The warming seas affects two different things. One is the species itself, like the fish itself try to move away from water that is too warm and all that. The second thing is the circulation of ocean currents. That also changes with warming seas. And as a result, many fish are now found in places where they never used to be found before. So earlier you would get oil sardines, for example, was a mainstay of the west coast of India. Now, strangely, you're getting them on the east coast as well. So these are the kinds of changes we are seeing.
So you mentioned you started getting into the sociological side of things. So in your field work with the fishermen, how have they adapted to these changes and how are they responding to these climate stressors?
So obviously there are many different types of fishermen, so they will have very diverse ways in which they have approached this. Some examples that I can give you are, for example, on the coast of Tamil Nadu. Earlier, we used to not get big schools of fish, like we never had oil sardines earlier. But now we are getting these big schools.
Okay.
So once fishermen realized that this was happening, they figured out that they needed to adapt the types of fishing nets that they are using in order to catch these big schools. So now they've come up with a new, they've sort of adapted a different kind of net called a ring seine.
Okay.
Which they never used to have earlier, and they can use this to catch these schools of fish which are now appearing in the ocean. So that is one way in which they are changing the way in which they fish. They also change the duration for which they fish. Earlier, they might have been going just for the day or something like that. Now they might be going for many days to fish. Of course, there is this temptation to leave this occupation altogether. So they want to make sure that their children are not in the fisheries. They get educated and they start doing other jobs and things like that.
Right. So all of this adaptation is obviously based on some kind of local knowledge that they have. And a lot of your work focuses on integrating that kind of knowledge with scientific research. Can you give me some examples from your work on how this has worked for you in your studies and your research?
Yeah, I think for me, the wake up call was in 2010. I had gone to the Gulf of Mannar area to talk to fishermen and see what kind of work they do. This was just my introduction to the fisheries. I also had no clue about what I was doing and so on. And at that time, there were people who were telling me about certain areas of the ocean where they go where there is absolutely nothing. They were like, it's a really strange thing even for them, they were saying that it was a very strange thing that they had never seen before, where if they put the net, they are not getting anything at all.
Okay.
So my explanation for that, because I had read all these textbooks and everything, was that, oh, it's because of overfishing. The fishermen only have gone and like taken everything out. And so that's why there's nothing in the ocean. But when I pressed them about that, they said, no, it is a very localized phenomenon. It's not like, all the fish have disappeared or something. It's just in certain areas. And this was the early days when no scientist in India was talking about climate change.
Right.
And it was only maybe 4 years after that the first papers started coming out saying that there are these dead zones in the ocean because of climate change, and that it's happening in the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal.
Okay.
So the fishermen were the first ones to kind of discover this, even before scientists. And I think that connection that, I'd heard this from the fishermen first, and then like 4 years later, scientists are talking about it. I think that's what got me really interested in fishermen's knowledge. And ever since then, I've tried to take what they say more seriously and not dismiss it the way I had done initially.
Right. So when you say dead zones, can you tell us a little bit more about the connection with climate change?
Yeah, so dead zones are basically because of a combination of changing ocean currents and also the pollution coming in from land, as well as the heating up of the ocean. What happens is that certain pollutants get concentrated just in a small pocket of the ocean. It's sort of weird to think that the ocean has pockets, but because of the currents, these pollutants kind of just stay within one really small like circulation system within the ocean. And most of these pollutants are organic material, and as a result, there's a big algal bloom. So a lot of these phytoplankton and things grow there, and they deplete the entire oxygen from that water.
Okay.
And because of that tight circulation, oxygen is not coming in from the other water around either. So suddenly, this place just becomes like zero oxygen. So all the fish that are there, if they are not able to move away, they die. So that's why it's called a dead zone.
Right. So we'll move into, we spoke about how climate change and warming oceans have affected where fish are found and how they survive. So the obvious thing to think is we should stop consuming seafood, right? But your approach is very different. Can you tell us a bit more?
Yeah, I think what struck me is just living in coastal areas with fishing communities. During much of my research, I've done that. And I've realized that in many coastal areas, you don't actually get good access to other types of food. So, seafood is the primary nutrition in those places. Like many fishing communities basically just eat, some kind of fish curry or some other seafood curry and rice.
Right.
And with that, because of the diversity of the seafood, they are able to meet all their nutritional needs. So it seems ridiculous to me to say then don't eat seafood, because what else are they going to eat?
Correct.
So I feel like in coastal areas, it doesn't make sense to say no seafood. Certainly, people who have the option of other things, I mean, they could take other options, but people who don't have options, you can't say don't eat seafood.
Right.
So therefore, I felt that was one aspect of not talking about moving away from seafood. The second aspect was that I noticed that we are catching like hundreds of different varieties of seafood, but in cities and so on, we seem to be eating a very small amount. So we actually did a study where we looked at people's consumption patterns, and we found that out of these hundreds of different varieties, people in cities are eating about 10 to 15. So, I mean, that's a ridiculously low number. As consumers, we are failing our ecosystem because we live in this tropical, diverse ecosystem, and we should be taking full advantage of that.
Right.
And so, what was happening is because people are eating so little, but people are catching so much, a lot of it was getting wasted. So it was either just getting thrown overboard or going to really low value things like pet food and all that. And to me, that seemed really horrible because these are all extremely nutritious fish, which we are giving to, other pets or cattle or shrimp or whatever to eat, and we are not eating it. And then we are talking about, nutrient deficiencies and everything in humans. So, yeah, so that connection I felt was really important to make.
So that was the genesis of InSeason Fish.
Yeah, yeah.
And what does it do? What is your aim with InSeason Fish?
Yeah, so I can't take full credit for the idea of InSeason Fish because the idea actually came from the fishing communities. When I was talking to them, they were talking about the fact that there is this big gap between consumers and what they are catching, and the fact that something is needed to bridge that gap.
Right.
So, InSeason Fish was sort of born out of that thing and came in with the idea of bridging this gap between fishermen and consumers. So, we work largely on three fronts. One is awareness. With consumers. So we do this awareness either online, through social media, through our website, and so on. part of this awareness is about the fish itself, to tell people what fish is available. And part of the awareness is about the fishing communities, to talk about who are the people who are catching the fish. The second is that we are working with the fisheries itself to kind of understand who is fishing how, what constitutes sustainable practices. While there are a lot of global standards and all that, I don't think that really applies to our Indian context. So we wanted to kind of create something that is very context based and specific to India.
Right.
So that is the second thing. And I think the third thing is to actually work with the fishing communities and the consumers to bridge this divide and create more transparent and better market supplies for the fishers who are fishing sustainably and for the seafood eaters who want to eat responsibly.
Right. And when it comes to individuals, what steps can we take as consumers of fish, of seafood, to be more conscious about what we're consuming and how we're consuming it?
So this is something that we raise a lot at InSeason Fish. We take people out to fishing harbors and fishing villages and so on, and show them how their fish is caught, what the different varieties are and so on. And the main goal of this is to make sure that as individuals, if you are a seafood eater, make sure that you are eating diverse, that you don't stick to just the same 6 or 10 fish that most people eat. Start eating more, because that is good not only for your health but also for the ocean's health. The second is to eat in season, and by in season we mean avoid eating fish during their breeding season.
Right.
This knowledge of breeding seasons used to be there earlier with communities. And at InSeason Fish, what we've been doing is trying to gather this knowledge back from local communities and kind of put it together. So now we have put up all this information of when the fish's breeding season is on our website. So even if you don't know, you can always go there and check and make sure that you avoid eating during the breeding season so that it gets a chance to breed and you will have that fish for next year. So during the breeding season, choose something else.
Right.
Don't eat your favorite fish all the time.
Right.
And finally, we also really encourage buying from small-scale fishermen, because their ecological footprint is really low. So they don't have terribly destructive fishing practices in general. And many of them have also come together to be more sustainable. They have consciously made that decision that they are going to be more sustainable.
Okay.
So if you can buy directly from them, if you are in a coastal area or something, please make sure that you take that little extra trouble and buy it from a small-scale fisherman.
Right. And when you say they've consciously made an effort to be more sustainable, what are the steps that they are taking?
So in many cases, they have realized that the fish catch has declined and so on. So they have come up with things like not using certain nets, even though that net might, give them a good catch. They have, as a group, decided we will not use this. Or they have decided not to fish in certain areas, to leave it aside. So a fisherman in Chennai, for example, had told me that there is a particular area with reefs, some kind of rocky reefs that they leave aside. They don't fish there unless the situation is really dire. They can't get fish anywhere else. So he was telling me, how the reserve bank is. Like nobody goes to the reserve bank on a daily basis. You go to your regular banks and fish. Right. This reef is like the reserve bank for us. Nice. So so those kinds of things they have put in place, and it is not like an individual decision. Like groups of villages have come together and made these decisions.
Right. You mentioned global policies kind of not working well in the Indian context. One of the examples from your research is how India is actually quite a shark-eating. We eat a lot of shark, but it's not often acknowledged, and a lot of our harvest of shark goes for our own domestic consumption. But shark conservation, given that it's a threatened species, there is a lot being said about how to conserve sharks in global policy. How does it work in India, and have we adapted well enough to ensure we're conserving the species while consuming them?
Yeah, so I think this sharks are really interesting because they are, I mean, in the Indian context, they are a commercially important species, or at least nutritionally important species. Whereas for conservationists, like you said, it's a like group of species that are really of conservation significance.
Right.
But largely the global narrative has been that most of the sharks are being caught because they are going into this, shark fin soup industry that is largely driven in Southeast Asia.
Okay.
So they've been blaming, countries like China, Malaysia, and so on, saying that they are the ones who are eating shark fin soup. So all over the world, sharks are being caught in order to send these fins to these countries. But that is not the case in India. And from the beginning, we've seen that in India, people are not cutting off the fins. They are bringing the sharks whole. They are selling it in markets. We can see it with our own eyes. But this discrepancy, because everyone is only talking about shark fins, no one is talking about the meat and so on, has resulted in globally there being a lot of pressure on countries to put in place laws about shark fins. So India also put in place a law banning, the practice of cutting off the fins while the shark is alive, which is called finning, and also banning the export of fins.
Right.
So in that way, India has really gone along with the global policies, but this has done nothing to conserve sharks, because the problem that is threatening sharks in India is very different. It's about local domestic consumption. And that is a much more nuanced and difficult problem to solve, because sharks and rays are generally lower priced seafood, and so they are going to feed lower income groups.
Correct.
So if we are going to tell them now that they can't eat it, what is the alternate for them?
Right.
So I think first recognizing this as being the problem, and then coming up with a more nuanced solution rather than just banning it outright. I think that's where we need to go. And that's why it's important to recognize that our problems may not be the global part of the global narrative.
Correct. A lot of your work kind of sits at this intersection, right? Policy, science, and benefit to local communities. With respect to India's blue economy policy, how has that kind of stood in terms of catering to what local communities need from the ocean?
Yeah, so I think the blue economy policy kind of gives a lot of opportunities. Like I said, in the face of climate change, fisher communities are looking for something else. They are looking for other opportunities for their children and so on. And if those opportunities could be linked to the sea, I think they would be really happy.
Correct.
The only issue with that is the way that some of these policies are formulated. It requires very mainstream thinking. And sadly, fisher communities in most places are not part of the mainstream.
Right.
For example, in many cases, banks don't lend to fisher communities. So in those cases, if you are going to talk about some kind of a government scheme that is coming through a bank or something like that, there's no way that a fisherman would be able to access those things. So I think it's more in the, how these policies are rolled out, that will decide whether fishing communities will be part of this blue economy or not.
Right. If you were to tell me current status of when the policy is made, any policy is made regarding ocean conservation, how integrated is it with local knowledge and how much further do we need to go?
Yeah, so to kind of understand this, I think we need to look at fishing, how the fishing laws are set up. So there are two, it's sort of a concurrent subject. It's both decided at the center and at the state level. So for coastal states, I think fishing communities are really important stakeholders. So in states like Kerala, for example, they've really gone out of the way to involve fishing communities. Also because of a lot of activism from the communities themselves, as well as researchers and so on. So now there's a lot of participation in formulating state policy. But when it comes to national level policies like this blue economy or something, I don't think there is much opportunity given for fishing communities to really voice their opinions or participate in the decision making.
Right.
So I think that's where the disconnect is happening.
So, from your research, what lessons can we kind of, if you were to give me like top 3 lessons that we can do to make policy more equitable and not further marginalize such communities?
So I think, firstly, it would benefit if there are more opportunities given for fishing communities to participate. So, for example, at one point, the central government was planning the National Plan of Action on Sharks. And they kind of subcontracted this to a different arm or a different agency that wanted to do this in a very participatory way. So they actually planned many different statewide meetings for fishing communities, and they not only invited the fishing communities, paid for their travel to the place and so on, but in some cases have even gone as far as to provide childcare so that even the women from the community can participate in the meeting, and so on. So I thought that was a very good example of how they went about it. Eventually, I don't know to what extent all of that was reflected in the policy itself, but I felt like it was a good opportunity for the fisher communities to actually engage with the government and to remove some of this distrust that has built up over years of no engagement. So that is definitely one way. The second way is to also involve other people from outside the government who've been working with these communities. So experts, researchers, things like that. Get more people involved in this kind of policy formulation.
Right. So we kind of touched upon both personal contributions in terms of consuming as a fish consumer, as well as policy contributions. So just one final question: what role can chefs or the hotel industry play in making conservation and making the conversation about how climate affects the seas and affects the fisher communities? What role do they play in kind of making that reach a lot more people?
Yeah, I think, they were largely a sort of ignored group of people in, any kind of marine conservation conversation. But I now realize that they are really important. One of the ways in which we realized this is because we were doing this seafood consumption study with people, and we realized that many people are deciding what to eat in their homes based on what they've eaten in restaurants. And then when we went and spoke to the chefs in restaurants, we realized that one of the key influencers in this space is actually the culinary colleges.
Okay.
So there it appears that a lot of people are getting training in things like French food and Chinese cuisine, and they are getting introduced to all those ingredients, but they are not really getting introduced to Indian ingredients beyond like the standard sabzis and whatever that people make. So none of our wild ingredients, none of our really local ingredients are being introduced to budding chefs and people in the hotel industry. So we felt like that is a big gap that needs to be filled. And once chefs have come on board and they have started introducing people to different varieties, even if it's just through a special or catch of the day kind of feature, if it's not a main part of their menu, even that has made enough of a difference that over 5 years we've started seeing more consumers asking about different varieties of fish, more consumers going to restaurants and saying maybe you should offer something different and so on. So I think they are really key stakeholders.
Right. So, with respect to climate change and climate variability in the Indian context and in our oceans, what research action is most urgently needed, according to you?
we have this tendency, because we work a lot on land, that of thinking of things within political boundaries or within these relatively small scales. But when you're talking about the ocean, you have to really think big,
Right.
because all the processes in the ocean are happening at the ocean scale, like Indian Ocean scale and stuff. And right now we are just thinking about India and stuff like that. If you speak to fishermen, and there are fishermen in Tamil Nadu, for example, who fish all the way in international waters. Even though they have relatively small boats, they have explored, different parts of the world just using their fishing boats. They've told me how they've gone, close, I mean, in the international waters, close to Africa, close to Australia. They've made friends with people there, and they have these kind of collaborations. And if they get into trouble in one of those places, they know whom to call. They have people they can rely on. I think we need that in science also, and we need that in research, and we need to be working at that scale if we really want to make a difference to the ocean. It's not enough that Indian scientists are maybe collaborating with somebody in the US or somebody in the UK or whatever. I think we need this regional collaboration where we should be working with Sri Lankan scientists or Bangladeshi scientists, or, anyone in this area, and working together to kind of understand the Indian Ocean.
Right. Thank you for this conversation. It was very enlightening.
Thank you so much for having me.